Good. So the Maamar Ashrei Tivchar, very interesting Maamar. I'm assuming many of you heard the message from Rabbi Gerelik. He gave all the pratim and the Maamar and how the Maamar was muge. It's not interesting. I was just thinking about this. So B'chlal, this Maamar is very unique. It's a bris Maamar. It was a Maamar that was said by the Vachnacht, just in front by Rabbi Yalis that came then for his Einikel's Vachnacht. So B'chlal, the Rebbe should say a Maamar to a Yachid is a very big chiddush. Maybe it was the only time. Right, but the Rebbeim, you saw this. You had the Rebbeim telling a Maamar to their son, like the next Rebbe, or for one of the Ziknei Chassidim. The Alter Rebbe had, the Maamar said, for very few people. The Rebbe, you didn't have this that often. You had in the early years where the Rebbe would bring in Bachrim into the room. It was also, the Maamar was in the Rebbe's room. So until, what was it? I think it was Yud Shvat Chaf Beis. It was at Kufa where the Rebbe was, some years it was mamish every few months or every few weeks, where the Rebbe would say a Maamar during Seder Chassidus in the morning. The Rebbe would come 8 o'clock. If you were there, you got into the Maamar on Shabbos morning. And if not, you were stuck outside. Gershom Mendel has mice. I'm sure you know some of these stories. Waiting outside to hear the Maamar. Then one time was Shabbos for Yud Shvat, I believe, the Rebbe came to say a Maamar, and they heard that the Rebbe was saying the Maamar, so they left the Sefer Torah. They were getting aliyas for Yud Shvat. They left the Sefer Torah on the bimah, ran into the Rebbe. The Rebbe saw what happened. The Rebbe didn't say the Maamar. The Rebbe stopped saying Maamar since then. That's basically how it stopped. So then the Rebbe said a Maamar for Yechidim, but it was 10 Bachrim, 15 Bachrim inside. So Maamar mamish for a Yachid. Shlomo Zarchi has a Maisa. The Rebbe was Motzei Yom Kippur. The Rebbe started the Farbei and said a Maamar was Maamar. It started with 2 Bachrim, and then more guys joined. This is Maamar for a Yachid. So we have his Hanacha. And you see the Hanacha is very short Maamar. What's interesting, sometimes you have a Maamar, and then the Mugge, the built-in Mugge, and then the Mugge, a lot of new and Yanim come. Here, on the one hand, the entire Maamar's in the Hanach and the built-in Mugge, but with very little Hasbara. And the Mugge gives it a lot of Hasbara, a lot of Reichel Hasbara. So that's B'chalal, the story of the Maamar. But it's not just that the way that Rebbe said the Maamar was unique, the whole Maamar is very unique. A lot of Inyanim here that are not explained by Arichas and Chassidus and not really gone into it. It's especially in the Rebbe's Maamarim. The sugya of nefesh sichles is on the one hand it's very yisoidistic, but it's not mamish all over Chassidus. And the way the Rebbe connects it to halacha and the different gedarim and chotzer and bayis and chotzer mekura and chotzer sheni mekura sounds very interesting. But what's the mahalach b'chlal of the Maamar? It's the Maamar that we say the pasuk. We say the pasuk by the bris. Ashrei Tivchar Sakarev Yishkin Chatzirecha Nisvu Tuvisech Shtei Sheichalecha. So in the Maamar he says that there's 4 dargis. Chatzirecha is Chatzero is Lashon Rabim. So there's 2 Chatzeros. Then Beisecha, the bayis, and then the Heichel. What are the 4 dargis? The 4 dargis are the 4 Elamis: Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, Atzilus. So we speak about the 4 Elamis Lamaila. That's later in the Maamar, and then initially we speak about the 4 dargis in Avodah, in Nefesh Adam and in Avodah Adam. And where are we trying to reach? What's the agenda? What's the goal? Trying to get to Asiya, to Yitzira, to Bria, to Atzilus. What's the end game? Nochech. Right? Even Atzilus is Nishdas. We take a speak about the 4 dargis, and most of the Maamar speaks about the 4 dargis. And many, maybe even 4 Ifanim to understand the 4 dargis, right? 4 different, in Avodah Adam, in Nefesh Adam, in the Oilamis, and the way there are, and at the end he goes into even the way they're in Gilei Shem Avaya, that's the mucker of the Dal Oilamis. But that's all just a hachana. It's in order to bring us to what? To the bris itself. Right? We say the pasuk by the bris, but then there's the bris alein. The bris is Shmini. Shmini is l'mayla mishtalshos, higher than the 4 Elamis. And the way he finishes the Maamar, the last 3 lines, the avodah v'dal de'anyanim shev pasuk zeh shem keneged dal de'elamis v'dal de'isi shem avaya hi achana v'akli la'gilui shel l'mayla mishtalshos. Now, when it comes to actual l'mayla mishtalshos, it's very little lazy. It doesn't really explain how that works, and especially after we go through the Maamar and so many different ifanim to understand the 4 levels. And when you come to the Havanas and Yon, we're speaking about the nefesh alikis alein, the Atzilus, the way it's miyuchan in the likus, and it's bittul b'mitzias in the highest level. So here's what's missing. There's stuff it's out ishtalshlos, and then there's higher than ishtalshlos. So Stam, it's very interesting. This Maamar is very similar. There's similarities and differences with the Sikha in Chelik Vav. Yisrei Chelik Vav. The 2 Sichas of Yisrei Chelik Vav are very geshmak sichas. One of them is the Sikha of Al Hein Hein, Val Lav Hein, Val Lav Lav. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, very good, very Yisraelistic Sikha. The other Sikha is about Zeichel Chamisha Koilis. Kol Mesameach Chasam Mekala, Zeichel Chamisha Koilis. What's interesting is the story of the Sikha in a way is similar. In other words, this Maamar, the way it seems that there was no preparation. He just showed up for the Vachnach, he came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said the Maamar. It's a special Maamar for a bris. Here, this Sikha wasn't for a Vachnach, it was for a Ufruf. It was David Shachat's Ufruf. And his father came to the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe, could the Rebbe verbreng for the Ufruf? In those years, you can see in Teres Menachem, in Sichs Kedesh, sometimes the Rebbe would verbreng for Sheva Bracha, it's usually for an Ufruf. But here, it seems it wasn't much hard schedule. The Rebbe verbreng l'chayre, it was Hey Nissen, so it was the week before, it was what the Rebbe verbrenged for Shabbos and Varachim, and then afterwards the Rebbe is going to verbreng Pesach. And he asked the Rebbe to verbreng, and the Rebbe said that he didn't prepare for it. And he told the Rebbe that Nissen is Chodesh of Nisim, so Zichur the Nasi has what to give. So the Rebbe was Makabel, the Rebbe verbrenged. And it was like, no preparation. The Rebbe at the Rogel Lake, their Sicha, which is a mamish, a merdik, a tife Sicha. And the mamish goes in a very similar track. That there's that Kol Mesameach Chasam Kal Zeichel Chamisha Koilis. What's Chamisha Koilis? Because there's 4 Eilumis. That's Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, Atzilis. And the way he splits it up there's the Dalid Madregas of Doimim and Sameach Chaim Medaber on many different levels, and explains the shaykhs of these inyonim to the 4 dargis in Nefesh Adam. And then at the end, there's a long sikha, many pages, many sifim, over 10, 11, 12 sifim, I don't remember at the moment. And then after the whole sikha, it speaks of the 4 dargis, it says, Aberdas Alts is a hachana for the Chamisha Koilis. What's the real chiddush of Nisuin? That Nisuin is higher than Ishtalshalos. You reach the 5th dargah, L'mayla Ishtalshalos. And in the 4 dargahs, there's a lot of Nikudis that are Mazber, especially in the Indian that he speaks about here. The Nefesh Seichel and Seichel, there's a lot of Reichel Oisi is there in the middle of the Sicha there about how Seichel works. Which, if you have some time, look up that Sicha, especially those Sifim. It'll give you some Hasbara. Some of the Yonim are similar to here, some of them are a bit different. So that was a year later. This was Tezayin. That was Tavshin Yod Zayin. Fine, that was Maamar Musgah. Now, in the Maamar, so there's a lot of Geshmaki in Yonim here. One of the Yonim that he speaks about Barichis is the Kud of Nefesh Sichlis, especially in the beginning of the Maamar. Also gets back to it later. So Nefesh Sichlis is B'chlal an interesting Geder. Because you learn Tanya, so Tanya tells you there's 2 Nefashis. That's like the whole Tanya's Miyusim, the 2 Nefashis. Nefesh Baham is Nefesh Alikis. Then there's Nefesh Sichlis. What's the story of Nefesh Sichlis? So Nefesh Sichlis, so first of all, what is Nefesh Sichlis itself? That itself is a ganze Sugi in Chassidus. When I say ganze Sugi, I mean that Chassidus grapples with it, but it's taken up. You could go through big parts of Chassidus and never encounter Nefesh Sichlis. Right, so Chassidus has a dion, is Nefesh Sichlis part of Nefesh Bahamis? It's just a higher level Nefesh Bahamis? Or there's 3 Nefashis. Nefesh Bahamis, Nefesh Alikis, and there's a Memutz in between that's a Nefesh Sichlis. In our Maamar, what's Mashmos in our Maamar? He seems to be put it as a Nefesh Fnei right? Because before he brings Nefesh Sichlis, first he says, when we get to the 2 dargis in Chatzeirecha, yeah? What are we speaking about over here? Right, there's Chatzer Mekura and Chatzer She'eni Mekura. Chatzer with the roof or without a roof. A Chatzer with the roof, no matter how big it is, will always be Rosh Yachid. If a Chatzer doesn't have a roof, if it's bigger than Beis Asayim, then even though Mideirais it's still Rosh Yachid, but the Rabbanan made into a Carmelis. So the Chatzer, so what's the difference between Chatzer Mekura and Chatzer She'eni Mekura? So he says the Chatzer Mekura, a Chatzer She'eni Mekura is good for behemoths. You don't need a roof for behemoths. You just need walls. You need a gutter around it in order that it shouldn't leave. But birds, if it doesn't have a roof, it will just fly away. So the birds need a Chatzer Mekura. So the birds are, so the lower level is the behemoths that need the Chatzer, that suffice with the Chatzer She'eni Mekura, and higher than that is the birds. So what are these 2 levels? So in Nefesh Adam, so first he says that it's 2 levels of Nefesh Bahamis. Nefesh Bahamis b'teikef agasos, Or nefesh bahamis that's more edel nefesh bahamis. We know nefesh bahamis. There's a shoyer, there's a keves, there's a a's. There's different kinds of nefesh bahamis. There's different people have different kinds of nefesh bahamis. And some people have different parts of the nefesh bahamis. One has more rage, one is a bit more calm. Yeah. But so there we speak about two dargis nefesh bahamis. But then he says. Proteus yoiser behema is nefesh bahamis. Ve'oif hu nefesh sichlis. Shemadreges al yoines the nega. So the first oifen we say there's two oifan nefesh bahamis. The second oifen we speak already two nefashas. Nefesh bahamis, nefesh sichlis. That's nefesh of neatzma. Leidach. In this ket, when we speak about the nefesh bahamis versus nefesh sichlis, the lashon he uses is proteus yoiser behema hi nefesh bahamis. In Sugrayim Atzma, Shim Madrigas Tachtoinis Neiga, and if it's Nefesh Sichlish Madrigas Al Yonis. What's the Atzma? What's the Atzma in Sugrayim? The Atzma in Sugrayim, the Chair is giving a place for the other. Right, so it goes back. So on the one hand, the fact that we start off with saying that there's two Oifanim Nefesh Bahamis. There's the Toikif for Nefesh Bahamis and there's the Chalishis. Fine. But then we say that there could be two Nefashas. Behema is nefesh bahamis and oif is nefesh sichlis. That seems to say that we're talking about two different nefashas. But by putting in atzma l'cher, we're saying that nefesh bahamis atzma is the core of the nefesh bahamis. Nefesh sichlis could be l'cher. It's saying that it could have a shaykhs nefesh bahamis, but it's not nefesh bahamis atzma. But it is part of nefesh bahamis. So l'cher, so the Maamar sort of leaves place for both ifan. The Rebbe speaks about it in a few Maamar. The Rebbe says that common point. The Rebbe says a chassidus of tzvei ifan if he's cooking of them. If there's two nefashas or three nefashas. Fine, but that's the more technical. The shaila more is, in other words, where does he come in? What is in Yonai? So it's interesting, like I said earlier, you learn Tanya, and Chayin Nefesh Sichos doesn't have to exist b'chlal. But le'idach, there's different biyurim in Tanya, where in a few different places, v'ikir, right, one place you have in Perek Beis speaks about the levush, the end of Perek Beis, the levush ma'aviv v'imois. What's the levush? So there's different fun understanding what the levush is. But be'ikir in Perek Yud, so Perek Yud says like this: Sha'adam magbir nafesh alikiyas and nefesh bahamis. Yeah. Who's the Adam that's magbir nefesh alikiyas and nefesh bahamis? Right. So in the Biyurim and Tanya and the Rebbeim also speak about this. So it's on the word Adam, but really, when you think about it, it's really a fundamental question because it's not just a shayla. And what's the pshat in Perek Yud? It's a shayla b'chlal in Tanya. When we speak about two souls, that the person has two souls. The question is, who is this person that has the two souls? At the end of the day, Tanya is being read by a human being. Yes, who's the human being that's reading it? Is Nefesh Alikis reading it? Is Nefesh Bahamis reading it? When a person does a mitzvah and aveir, when a person makes choices, who's making choices? Nefesh Alikis, Nefesh Bahamis. So, but Zegufa, there's different how to understand it. So one oifin of understanding, this is you could say the simple meaning in Tanya, according to this is the way it's understood in various prakim and throughout Chassidus Bichlal. The taka that a person, there is no objective person. There is no shlishi amidaber. That is the person. The person is this chibur of two nefashas. And everything that we do is this battle and this expression from two sides of our personality. And in a way, that's the whole vart of Tanya. That's the whole chiddush of Chassidus. Because Chassidus comes and says it's two nefashas. Mamish. The greatest chiddush from Tanya. Everyone knows that a person has Yitzhak Tov, Yitzhak Hara. We know that from way back. That's Yiddishkeit. What's the chiddush? The chiddush of Tanya is that it's not two Yitzarim, it's two nefashas. What's the difference two Yitzarim and two nefashas? Two Yitzarim, right, like we're told when we're kids, is you have two voices. Two people on the side. One guy looks all something against a bar. The other guy is all scary. Yeah, different. Right, and you're sort of listening, and then you have to make a choice between these two voices. And this is what Tanya is coming to tell a person. The person could get confused and say, "1 second. Sometimes I listen to Nefesh Alikis. Sometimes I listen to Yitzhak Tov. Sometimes I listen to my Yetzer Hara. I'm confused. I don't have an identity. Who am I? Like, why can't I stand strong? Why can't I just listen to one of them?" But then comes Tanya, right? Especially he speaks about this in Perek Zayin, Perek Ches. That no, that's who you are. You are. You're not. It's not two different outside voices that are speaking to you. You are two nefashas. Part of you wants this. Part of you wants that. And when you taka do a mitzvah, it's your nefesh kiss doing it, but you're doing it with the nefesh bahamas. When you do an avera, it's coming from the nefesh bahamas, coming from Yitzhahara, but you're dragging along the nefesh kiss because everything you do has both energies. So that's one mahalach. So one mahalach is that taka, there is no part of a person who can come and say, there's something here, there's an independent person sort. No, that there is no independence. That's who you are. At every step you take, every decision you make, you are those two nefashos.
But who makes the decision?
Who?
If a person has to...
So if you go in this mahalech, both. Who? Yeah, the person.
There are two choices, and I have to decide what version.
So I'm constantly being torn, and sometimes this pulls me in one direction, sometimes it pulls me in another direction. So in a way, right? The problem with that is, in a way, then there's no choice. So then there really isn't bchira if that's the case, right? Because then we're asking a person to choose. We're not really telling him to choose. What we're then telling him is that your nefesh elikis has to be nisgaber on the nefesh bahamis. How is the nefesh elikis nisgaber on nefesh bahamis? So by doing mitzvahs, right? Let's say by being how you mechaz nefesh elikis, you do more mitzvahs, you give it more chayis, you give it more energy. So who are we telling to do more mitzvahs? That person with the nefesh elikis nefesh bahamis, right? You end up getting stuck somewhere, right? So l'chayra, there's a starkest svar to come and say that there's this person that on some level is independent, and he's taka being torn. He's being pulled in two directions by nefashas, not by outside entities, by the nefashas. But there's a person we can speak to and say, Rei nasati lefanecha zachayim esatoy vesamav vesvesara. Choose this, choose that. Take a path. And now you go be magri nefesh elikis. And if you went down, you didn't go up, it's because you gave space for your nefesh bahamis to be neskaber. So now this adam, adam magbir nefesh elikis nefesh bahamis. So according to some of the biurim, the adam is the nefesh sichlis. Right. So on the one hand, Tanya doesn't mention the word nefesh sichlis, but if this is the pshat adam, then no way ganz Tanya has to nefesh sichlis. In other words, the Tanya is written to. Thomas Tanya are written to people that struggle and people that have questions. Who has questions? Nefesh sichlis. That wants to figure out what to do. Right? It's in a way, while on one hand it's not mentioned at all, on the other hand, it could be the ikar narrative of everything. That's what we're talking to. We're talking to nefesh sichlis. Yeah.
But in this way, why in nefesh elikis and nefesh bahamis they remain nefoshes, not yitzhar?
Because that's an akudah. They're not. It's not nefesh sichlis listening to outside voices. The nefashis, they comprise the human being. These are all different netiyos that I have. There are different drives that I have. In other words, lock a person in a room, he doesn't hear anything. Soundproof, right? There's no sounds, there's no voices, there's no other agendas, there's no people convincing, there's nothing. A human being, just by being a human being, you have different drives. So there's a drive in this direction, there's a drive in that direction, and then there's a sort of middle ground of sorts that's able to be objective and is able to hear the different sides and then make a choice where he wants to go. So there you have the nefesh sichlis. So now, on the one hand, nefesh sichlis here, when you think about it in those terms, nefesh sichlis has a lot of power. Right? He's the kingmaker. He's the one that's making the choices here. He's the one that pulls the person in different directions. Le'idach. What we're speaking about, who taka is the person? Right? So here it gets a bit even more confusing. Who is the person? So Perikov Test Tanya says, "There's the mensch." Nefesh bahamis. He adamat. Hillel Zakin is able to say that when he goes to eat that he's hoilich ligmul chesedim haluva. He's going. I'm going to give charity. I'm doing chesed with the guf because by a tzaddik his mitzias is who is he really? His nefesh elikis. He's doing chesed with nefesh bahamis. But a regular person, a beinoni and lower, his mitzias is the nefesh bahamis.
You already said that it's also nefesh. It's also.
One sec. No, but the Vart he's trying to say there is Farkert. Your regular Mitzias, your regular identity is Nefesh Bahamis. Nefesh Elikis is a Shikul Chiddush. Le'idach, and this Befrat you see in the Rebbe's Torah. It's brought in Chassidus in a few places, but the Rebbe brings about this again and again in the Sichos and the Maamarim, that by a Yid, what's the real Mitzias of a Yid? The Emes Mitzias from a Yid is Nefesh Elikis. Everything that a Yid does, soft comes from his Nefesh Elikis. And the Rebbe takes us to very extreme places. Obviously on a very basic level, right? The one of the top Rambams that the Rebbe brings, the most quoted Rambams, one of the Rambams is Hilchos Gerushin. That Koif and Yemer Roitzani, what are you forcing the guy to say Roitzani? He wants to give a get. Well, what kind of joke is this? He's doing it by coercion. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't. But Ribalda Yid Be'etzem wants to do all the mitzvahs. That's the real mitzvahs of a Yid. So even if you're forcing him, you're only forcing him to say it begolly. But Pneumius, he always wanted it. So we're just bringing the Pneumius into Gilui. Then there's more. You have a very interesting place where the Rebbe takes as a Maamar. This is from Lukatei, also from Lukatei. Edel told us Noach. One of the last Maamarim the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said a Maamar in Noach, Parshas Bereshis, Tavshanun Aleph. Edel told us Noach, and a Maamar Chayesara. Chayesara, that was the last Maamar. Chayesara Nun Aleph. Then the Chamishas V'Shvat Nun Beis, the Rebbe said a Sicha that everyone thought was a Maamar. They started preparing it, the Rebbe was Megid as a Sicha, about the Shivas Aminim. Anyway, so the Rebbe says a very interesting word, that when a person, let's say a person's walking down the street and loses a coin, he has a hole in his pocket, and a coin falls out. And then in back of him, there's an Oni going, and Oni picks it up and takes it. So did he give tzedakah? Maybe the Pele did it, but there was no. So l'chayre, the most we could say is Gela Ma'aser Pele. He did a mitzvah. The Rebbe says no. It's not only Ma'aser Pele did a mitzvah. Not only he has the Ma'aser mitzvah, he also has Kavanas mitzvah. It's just like how can I have Kavanah? He wasn't thinking about it. He didn't know that it happened. He'll never know. Nachman, let's say this guy's the biggest miser. He never gave it stuck in his life. He has no kavanah to give a mitzvah. Elamai. Be'etzem, everything that happens by a yid and a yid's life comes from his nefesh elikis. So here, in this case, what happens like this. Nefesh elikis wanted to give tzedakah. Because his nefesh bahamis is very complicated. He doesn't like to give tzedakah. So, it doesn't spell out in Gantz. And this is the word that I was saying there. So, he usually doesn't give tzedakah. So what happened? So it's Gevar Namai said that a coin falls. That way he doesn't know about it, so he won't stop it, and the ani will take it. But why do you do it? Why did the coin fall? And I guess why was there a rip in his pants? I don't know exactly at what stage it starts, but the nekuda is that at the yisoid is everything comes from nefesh elikis. Every action that a yid does, yisoid is the nefesh elikis of a person. So weiter, where's the place of nefesh sichlis? Because the core of the person is really his nefesh elikis. So the way we speak about nefesh sichlis here in this Maamar, similarly in other places, nefesh sichlis, it's not about that he has all the power. The vart of nefesh sichlis is that he's the memutza. He's a memutza. The avodah adam is lahagber nafshay elikis al nefesh bahamis. And what's tried at Lahagbir? So first of all, it starts with this skafia, the break nefesh bahamis, not to give in to temptations of nefesh bahamis. But ultimately, the agenda is to be mahapach nefesh bahamis. And he should also come to Ava, V'yira, and he should also be interested in what the Eibishter wants, Teiro, mitzvahs, v'chulu, v'chulu. In order for that to happen, the nefesh elikis has to speak to nefesh bahamis. If it's just to shut him down, you shut him down. Say they're just like do crazy stuff, gilui elikos, and everything shuts down. But if we want to actually do something with nefesh bahamis and bring him on board, there has to be communication. In order for there to be communication, whenever you want to make a deal between two parties, there has to be a mediator, there has to be someone in between. So nefesh sichlis is that mediator. So that's in the main job, the memutzi, is the memutza. The memutza between nefesh bahamis and nefesh elikis. So, this nefesh sichlis is the oif. And the oif flies. Very interesting oisias here. Why is the oif fly? So he says two in yanim. Number one, why does nefesh sichlis? Nefesh sichlis is the oif, is the bird. Why do we say nefesh sichlis flies? So one Inyan is teva seichel. This is in the Kovetz, in the bottom of page 16. Teva seichel, even seichel nefesh sichlis, that's seichel tivi. Seichel denoiga, because it's seichel, is tivoi nimshach l'mashal l'mayla mimenu. The second union is that through the slabshus and nefesh alikis and nefesh sichlis, it can comprehend, it could be masig in yoni alikush l'mayla meyoylam, but nevertheless, yirak maskima l'asag nefesh alikis alina sharis mhusa seichel enush. So there's two inyan. Why we say that seichel flies? Seichel on its own is something that's gate hecher. Right? In gate hecher itself, Chassidus brings different biur and different kudis. What's the pshat seichel? Is nimshach l'mashal l'mayla mimenu. So on a very basic level, seichel b'mehusay is abstract. Right? You have technical seichel. There's different kinds of sichlim, right? There's all kinds of different sheva chachmas. There's very practical seichel. There's seichel how to build, right? There's seichel how to do very practical gashmistic things. And then there's mathematics, physics, and then there's philosophy, right? And there's many diaries here. Things are more and more abstract. Seichel b'mehusay, if you leave seichel to its own devices, right, and you don't ground it, that's what seichel does. Seichel likes to krich. And the more impractical something is, what's the maskana l'mayis? I don't care about maskana l'mayis. But at the Indian, yeah. Seichel likes just to think about ideas that are removed from practice sha'ilam hazif, from the chayim yoyim. So that's number one. Pasha, it goes to the world of abstract. Seichel likes to zone out, right? To enter the more abstract reality. But Nachmer, Seichel is interesting. Because on the one hand, right, and he speaks about in the Maamar, in different places in the Maamar, he speaks about this. Is Seichel mitzias or is Seichel bittul? What's Seichel? So when we speak about Seichel versus Midas, so usually Midas is mitzias. I mean, it's what I feel. It's the subjective reality. It's Midas. Seichel is objective reality. Seichel is what's the inyan. What's the truth? 2 + 2 = 4. That's a fact. I feel very much. I feel for the number 5. Since I'm born, my family, the number 5 is a very chashva number. I have a very striking atiyah and ratzon. Say very happy, but that's just the way seichel works. Seichel is objective truth. On the other hand, seichel. All right, he says this in the next keta. Seichel not only could have, in a way, it's a source of yeshus. Right, you see this. You see this by bali seichel. Bali seichel. You people that are stark seichel and they have a das chazak. People are strong-minded, and you can't move them. They don't budge. Right, you start a battle. You start fighting with a sichli like that. You'll never win, and they take it very, very personal. Right, and they take it personal. It's in the midas. When it could, a seichel could be very, very strong. Azoy derinyan. Right, people that are very strong-minded, they don't budge. As they like zechapamir. So on the one hand, back to the point I'm trying to say, is that seichel on the one hand is very, this is the way I understand it, and I get it, and it makes sense to me. As such as somebody that's very analytical, and everything's misuder. Nothing is done on the way. Everything's with the cheshbon, and it makes sense, and very misuder. So beside that, seichel is very misuder. Right? On the other hand, seichel is never happy with what it knows. It never becomes comfortable. Seichel always goes deeper. It always searches for was versteht nicht. You got it. It's gewaldig. You struggled with the sugya, and now either on your own you came to Havana, or someone else was mazbi to the Indian. You struggled in understanding the word in the Maamar. Oh, I got it. Right? Be happy. And there's a lot of geschmack. There's a lot of chayas. There's a lot of tainug in versteht the Indian. But right away, Seichel goes and aber fartig versteht nicht. Right? He's trying to go to somewhere. He's trying to find things that he still didn't understand. Seichel is never comfortable. Seichel is always looking for nachtifer or nachecher. That's what Seichel looks for. Seichel is never comfortable with what he understands. He always tries to go to more. But then the second inyan, that Seichel on its own, Satake is strept, right? It strives for something more. But at the end of the day, it's mobile on what it could understand on its own terms. But through the slapshus of Nefesh Elikis and the Nefesh Sichlis, that's what the Nefesh Elikis does. The Nefesh Elikis, by him, is the Elikus B'Pshitis. Oilmus B'Yischachus. Right? So by him, it's not a whole cheshbin to understand the Elikus. It's a davar apashat. The Seichel, right? The Seichel Eliki for Nefesh Elikis is a davar tivi. On a completely different level, understands Elikus on a completely different darga. Mitzad Mehusein. Nefesh, because all these nefashis are all part of the same human being and they're all connected to each other, the Nefesh Elikis could be slavish in the Nefesh Sichlis, and it could give the Nefesh Sichlis a shaykhis that could even understand in Yon and L'Chair only Nefesh Elikis can understand. Right, Michal, this is the Indian of Limud Chassidus. So, what exactly are we learning in Chassidus? And can a goy learn Chassidus? So Chassidus speaks about Yonim Elikim, get L'Chazar. Okay, but it gives it Mishalim, and it gives it Oisius, Hasbara. So even a simple person can understand it. So the Chari could go to a goy that doesn't have Nefesh Elikis, and he could explain it to a goy. He could also understand Chassidus, but could only understand it to an extent. Because even though Chassidus gives Oisius of Seichel and it's a Slabshus of Seichel, but it's a Slabshus and Oisius of Seichel. The ideas here are getliche ideas. It's not seichel. It's not another chachma. It's not philosophy. Right? Because there's also philosophy. That's not chassidus. There's philosophy, and there's philosophy about God, and philosophy about. But philosophy discusses. It's about the Eibusher. It's about God. It's how to discover God, how to prove that God exists, how to find God in this world, etc., etc. But it doesn't. But was is elikus? What is getlichkeit itself that we have no shaykhs to? The Eibusher is boyer, we're nivra. We have no shaykhs to understand these things. It's not in our. It's not in our velt. Seichel can understand things in one's velt. So elikus is betzim is musig only in nefesh elikis. But because the nefesh are together, so nefesh elikis we mashpil on the nefesh sichlis, and through nefesh sichlis, nefesh hamis can't understand nefesh hamis is just the bigger midas, but at least it gets the memo that kiris elikim litoy, that elikus could be geshmak in a midistic way, but it comes through the hasaga of the nefesh sichlis. So that's the oif of the nefesh sichlis, that he's able to go beyond the tchunis of seichel enoshi, and he's able even to comprehend and access and verstehen in yonim alikim they're l'maylo me'asagos. Nefesh sichlis. Okay, so the it's great. Nefesh sichlis is great, especially through the slapshus and nefesh alikis and nefesh sichlis. Which every Maamar and that we learn, that's what we're doing. You learn the chassidus, you're learning chassidus. It's nefesh alikis learning, but you're understanding it when you're talking about it with your chavarusa and you're giving it oisius. You're giving oisius in nefesh sichlis. Nefesh alikis doesn't have oisius. Nefesh alikis lives, experiences the whole concept of oisius and conversation about it is in the world of nefesh sichlis. So the it's great. Nefesh sichlis is in the human experience. Nefesh alikis is the likus shebesichenu. It's not the humanity that we have. Nefesh sichlis is the highest we'll go, and it's gewaldig. And think about nefesh sichlis in the time that he's learning chassidus, and he gets it, and he connects to yonim elikim. So what's the issue? Here's where it gets a bit dangerous. The nefesh sichlis needs a shmira yesera, a greater shmira than the nefesh bahamis. Nefesh bahamis, all it needs is walls. The nefesh sichlis needs a roof as well. Why does it need the roof? Because it's flying. What's the pshat that it's flying? The flying, is it's maila. Zucht hecher, zucht tifer, and nachmer. It appreciates alikus on some level. It's able to get in yonim that are l'mayla me'asaga, higher than seichel enoshi. So dafke, that part of us that's able to appreciate alikus, the most edel step part of the human being, that it's so edel that through the proper islamshus is able to tap into the havana of alikus, in a way can be the most dangerous part of a person. Right, this goes back to what we were saying earlier about the double-edged sword of seichel. Chassidim, the Chassidim, they're always maskilim and oivdim. Chassidim were split. Maskilim and oivdim. Even in the Ksavim, the Friedrich Rebbe So he writes about the Maamar Hicholzu, that the Maamar Hicholzu was one of the Maamorim that all the Rebbeim said, started from the Alter Rebbe said already in the time of the Magid, on the way back from the Magid, and then all the Rebbeim chazered it. They all chazered in their signin during a time of Machlekes. And he goes from many of the Rebbeim, what the Machlekes was in every doyer. So at the time of Alter Rebbe, there was this town that wasn't Mekabel the Rav on. Every few months was time to try to get a new Rav. But they never Mekabel the Rav, so every few months a new Rav would come and then they would send the guy flying. Yep, only from Amol. But I think, so he goes through different doyers. I think in the time of Tzemach Tzedek, if I'm not mistaken, there was a town that was split. It was a massive machlekes, was split down the middle between the Oivdim and the Maskilim. And they couldn't get along. It was Ad Kadei Kach, and he had to say Yicholzu. Give over the Maamar Yicholzu to make shalom between these two sides. The Rebbe Rashab, we know, and he said Yicholzu, and he said Yicholzu twice, 2 weeks in a row, and different stories the Friedrich ever said. One of them was with the Glezla Mashke. Yicholzu was said on Simchas Torah, Tafrishon Tes, and he said it again in Parshas Noach. The Rebbe gave out Yicholzu in Tafshim Memches, and he said it then. That was a little more begasus, the machlekes going on. But one of the machlekes was Maskilim and Evdim. So, what was the shaila? So besides the Maskilim with the Evdim, you don't get it. The Evdim tiny, you're missing the ikir. But the shaila is, what's bittul? What's more bittul? Because at the end of the day, that's what Alikus is all about. That's what Chassidus is all about. It's about bittul. So if you come and say, so if you could just come and say, the Oivdim said that they have bittul. Maskilim said, yeah, but you don't have the Metzias. No, that wasn't the machlekes. The machlekes was, what's more bittul? So the Oivdim tained, Maskilim are great, you're learning Chassidus, but you're not working on yourself, you're not breaking yourself, you're not changing yourself. Avoid is brechen sich. The Maskilim came and tained, no, verkehrt. Avoid is bittul hayesh. Maskal is bittul Metzias. I understand in the Maamar there's many dargis, bittul hayesh, bittul Metzias, right? You have the order there as well. The B'yail in Sefer Erchim was a Ches or Tes over there. Achdas Hashem. So he's Mesakim 4 or 5 Ifanim in understanding what different Ifanim in Chassidus of what's the difference between B'tol Yesh and B'tol Metzias. So he brings from Ashrei Tivchar and from other places because it's always that tension of what's the Yesod, what makes something B'tol Yesh, what makes something B'tol Metzias. But the Kudah is B'tol Yesh is that there's a Metzias that's in Batal himself, and B'tol Metzias is the in his Batal Mitzad Atzmi. And you get married, there's a mushal that they give younger light. The Bittul Hayesh, I have to figure out what the equivalent for that of Bachram is. Bittul Hayesh is getting married. Bittul B'Metzias is when you have your first kid. In a few years, you'll come back to me. You'll verstehen the word. I'm not sure if it's the way it's in the Pnim or the way it's in the Ara, but then it could have said the word. Anyways, what the Tanya is, Avodah, you're coming, you're breaking yourself. But Naskala, it's what the Maamar is saying. It's the emes from the Maamar, the emes from the state. Right? So the ish sichli, if Taka, think about somebody that puts everything else on the side, the only thing they care about, verstehen Chassidus, he's at the top of the mountain, he's doch gewaldig. And that's true. But le'idach, dafke der far, and because it's so high, and because it's a gate hecher on hecher, therefore what? It's so hard to find the Ra. The Ra is so nelam. Right? The Rebbe spoke last week in the later years, Yisparu v'Yislavnu, that today the Chiddush is, before Mashiach comes, Yisparu v'Yislavnu, that even that the Ra nelam is in Skala. You see people that are the highest level and they're doing the craziest things, such Nidr Kazach and Vishayach. Because now, even by the highest people, the Ra comes out. Dafke by the Seichel, Dafke when you're in a place of Seichel, I'm completely objective, I'm living in a world of intellectual objectivity. Well, Nachmer, not only mitzad seichel, it's seichel alikid that's established in the seichel in the nefesh seichlis. There's a likus, there's chassidus here, but dafke der far, you can't find the ra. So how do you find the ra? Here it says the interesting vart. It's not just finished with this. The interesting vart here. He said something similar. One point you have to find the ra. And number 2, you have to mevar the dakus hara. How do you find the ra? When you're mispoinen, that no matter how much you understood, even though nefesh likis wasn't slavish nefesh sichlis, but you didn't really get it. At the end of the day, you didn't really get it, right? With all your yes, with all your yonah, once a person chaps, right, and that's the mila, and that's where you get the mila only of seichel. If Seichel gets you very high, but if you think that you got it, that's what your downfall is. Seichel has to remember that on the one hand you get it. Like when you understand the Indian, you get something, it's very geschmack, and you feel like, oh, I got it. Toifus, yeah? The Seichel is Toifus the Muskel is Toifus the Seichel, Peraketanya. But Liidach, always remember, as a fart nish das. Because at the end of the day, it's Nefesh Seichlis. So with all this slabshus, it's not Nefesh Kisalei. You didn't really get it. So, and then when you misplain it, then you're able to find the Ra. And then he says, and then when you're margish and philosophy kushal ma'ila me'aseichel, you're mivar the dakos hara. So in order to find the ra, it's a spoinus shali kushal muflam seichel enoshi. In order to be mivar that ra that you found, what do you have to do? Margish hafilosophy kushal ma'ila me'aseichel. So he's saying something. So is it the same hafilosophy kushal ma'ila me'aseichel? Sai finds the ra and Sai is mivar the ra. You're saying the same thing. In order to find the ra, you have to be margish. You have to. In order to be mevar the dakas hara, you have to be margish hafos l'kus ma'il ma'aseichel. But there's two inyanim here. In order to find the ra, it's the spoinos that l'kus muflam seichel enoshi. In order just recognizing, tell yourself, be misplain and recognize that you don't have it all. You don't really get it. You don't really get it. You didn't get it all. There's things that are much deeper than you. In order to be mevar the dakas hara, it's by being margish daflas alikushal and ma'ila me'aseichel. It's not the explain. It's not by knowing the fact. Knowing the fact, okay, I don't have it all. So that itself gives you sort of you realize that you're not b'sish moishe grois. And then okay, so I can start searching and finding things. I have issues. I can become aware that I have issues. Until you know that, you think you figure it all out, and you're miyuchim and talikus. It's all great. No, you don't have it all, and maybe you still have issues. So you're able to find those issues. How you mevar those issues? By being margish that fact. Not just that I know. Once you take their hair, that's the episode of a from there. That's a bittul. It's not just an awareness, not just knowing that I don't have it all. I have what to improve. It's that hakar, it's like the ner b'fnei avuka, or the chacham katan in front of the chacham gadol. It's that moment of it's that hergish. It's a hergish. You recognize that there's something greater than me. It's the hergish habittul. That hergish habittul, that's what brings the bitter. So the espoinus makes you aware, and that hergish that comes from that espoinus l'chayra gives you that bittul. And I think it's not just for this maamar; it's in klali b'chlal. The espoinus brings you to a certain place that you can know what's going on. Chassidus is Chassidus machlichtik, you're able to see what's happening. That's the espoinus of Chassidus. But then the hergish comes from this espoinus. It comes from that espoinus, but the hergish that comes from that's what actually does the avoid and actually changes the person. Fine,